We're going to show you wallflowers, the perks of real flowers.
Watch out, watch out.
Wayne, you're going the wrong way.
You want to go? Because we can go right now.
This message is transmitted at the request of the United States Office of Civil Defense. We are under siege by a chemical attack.
How bad is it?
It's not that bad.
Follow the heroes, not the zero. Keep up.
Ooh, wait, bro!
We need to find weapons.
If you get us killed, I'm gonna be so pissed.
What do you suggest we do?
I say we draw them to one side of the building and then slip through the other.
I'm a D&D level 20 raw wizard.
Protect us.
What is it with you shut-ins and your zombie fantasies?
We're not in a goddamn comic book, okay?
Whoa! Watch the Dolces.
Is he dead?
Of course he's dead, Ryan. He just fell off the freaking roof.
What we need is fire.
Really, dude?
Pick up the devil. Get on my level. Who do you run with? Venom in your vessels. Fire raging rebel. Do you have a death wish? Do you have a death wish?
Is it that bad? More like badass.
I like the danger. Watch out, watch out.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to the latest episode of Fresh Cuts. This is Mike, and joining me, as always, it's Mr. Venom. What's up, Venom? How's it going?
Greetings and salutations, stupid high school kids. Yeah, I'm doing pretty well, Mike. I'm only addressing the stupid high school kids this week. Everybody else, I guess I'm not saying hello to. How the hell are you, Mike?
I was like, well, my kids aren't quite high school age yet, so
yeah, and I thought they'll be
spared of your wrath. Doing well. Just, you know, I really don't have anything new to report other than doing well. It's summertime, so, you know, all the stuff that comes with that. But also with us, it's Don and Nelly. What's up, Don? How are you?
Yeah, doing good. Always happy to be here.
All right, cool. So we will get right into this week's movie then. And this one is a VOD pick. We kind of, I don't know. I don't even know how exactly. I think this is just one that released like pretty recently. It was between this and a couple others, and for whatever reason.
I think this was more of we've got access to it, so I think we can pick it kind of a thing.
Yeah, so this one was made in conjunction between Epix, which is the premium movie network, and Blumhouse. So I guess they kind of collaborate on getting this one produced. It is labeled as a comedy horror thriller, and it's titled Unhuman. The synopsis on IMDb goes as follows. A group of high school students whose school bus crashes on a field trip. Wait.
Yeah, the English is very improper here.
Yeah, I was like, oh.
Good job, IMDb.
Yeah, I was about ready to laugh at that. I was about ready to pop in and say, Mike, be sure to mentally correct the English.
Yeah, there's a period there. Okay. Let's see. Relationships are tested once they realize they are being stalked by an attacker who intends to drive them out and straight into a horrifying fight to survive. All right, I guess we're going to find out, did we love this one, or was it a horrifying fight to survive to get through the runtime of 1 hour and 31 minutes? So I would say not a crazy long runtime or anything, but I don't know. We'll see what we thought of this one. So Unhuman, Venom, general thoughts. What did you think of this movie?
Well, unfortunately, I'm not going to come in very high on this one. I did not have a very good time with this movie. I'm actually struggling to try to find something to compliment this movie on. The score is just not good. It's annoying. It's got a lot of like 2000s alt music on there, which like to me, I guess if you like that kind of music, it might work for you. But yeah, I hated this score. I hated pretty much everyone in it. These performances are, I won't go so far as to say terrible performances, but ultimately, it's a movie filled with high school kids. I've already said ad nauseum how, these aren't the kind of horror movies that I would gravitate towards. Um, Based on its description, it looked like it was going to be mildly fun. And I will say for maybe half of the second act, it was mildly fun. I was kind of looking forward to this because Charlie Clouser did the score for this, and who did the score for the Saw movies, which is one of my favorite scores of all time. And yeah, this one is just not very well done, I guess. It seems like he might have phoned it in this time, quick paycheck or whatever. But yeah, and then on top of everything, this movie does something that I can't fucking stand. And unfortunately, I can't talk about it now because it would be a major spoiler. But there have been horror movies like this over the years that periodically come out that just do something at the end of the film that just make me completely feel like I wasted my fucking time. And yeah, on top of the fact that the journey wasn't even all that great to get to that reveal at the end. And then once we get the reveal, to be able to accept it, you've got to have some major suspension of disbelief, especially considering these are high school kids. Granted, they're 18, they're about to graduate, but they're still fucking high school kids. And, whenever we get, an evil genius in a movie like this, and he's like a 17-year-old kid, I just, I have a really hard time swallowing it. So, very little as far as kills, on-screen kills, effects. It's just meh. I mean, I guess if anything, I guess we classify. Well, I guess I'm not even going to classify the movie since they don't even talk about the antagonists in the synopsis. So I guess I'll leave that alone for now. But oh, what else? Just overall, I just really didn't have that great a time with this movie. Mike said that it was an hour and a half. It felt like 3 hours to me. I'm not going to say it's the worst thing I've seen in forever. Not at all. I've seen a lot worse. The movie's, as far as its cinematography goes, it's okay. At times, it doesn't look great. And at times, too, they make some weird filmmaking choices, which we'll talk about in the spoiler section. But yeah, overall, this feels like just a very up-and-coming director, making maybe his first feature. I care so little about this film that I really didn't look up too much information on it.
It's Marcus Dunstan, the guy who did the Collector and Collected.
Okay, well, then what the fuck happened to him? Because I love The Collector. I don't know what the hell this movie is, but, whatever. Again. So I guess I'll just leave my general thoughts at that. To me, it wasn't a very compelling film. Not really any likable characters other than Ever, our main female protagonist. And actually, that's a cool name. 2 weeks in a row, we've had some cool names. Last week, we had a kid named Brecken. This week, we have a girl named Ever, an Asian girl. So, kind of interesting names. But otherwise, I'm going to be struggling to find positive things to say about this movie once we're finally, talking about actual scenes and plot points in the movie. But yeah, for me, this is not a winner. Nothing that I think anybody, needs to watch. And, I can't imagine it's going to be in anybody's top 10 list at the end of the year. So this is one that I just can't recommend. Once I've said this before and I'll say it again, this is a horror comedy that is neither scary nor funny. So that pretty much tells you how I feel about the film. That's it for now, Mike.
Okay, we'll move it on over to Dawn. What did you think of Unhuman?
I'm pretty close with Venom in several regards. I do find the characters just absolutely killable. I could not root faster for a zombie apocalypse to overrun and overtake a group of characters quicker. Absolutely just full of cliched teen beats. Every single teenage horror film we've ever seen basically is represented here. Loner, outcast, the nerd, the bully, the jock, the cheerleader. Basically every single unlikable, unusable, and just irritating character trope just littered the screen in the first 5 minutes. So you want your zombie apocalypse to just basically wipe everybody out, as quickly as possible. But I will say this movie did have me for like the first 45 minutes. The initial introduction of what's going on, getting there and all of the, minor little beats here and there that kind of, pinpoint things are happening. I was with it, not top quality material, but, I'm not hating it. I'm not loving it, but it's kind of watchable in a sense. It's not, like the worst thing I've ever seen. So, it's like, yeah, okay, there's an issue here or there, but it's kind of, it's not, without its own merits. But yeah, once this thing decides to try to twist everything around and introduce this, I will call it cleverer than thou twist, I think around the hour mark is when we first start getting hints that there's something else going on. Man, does this thing just shit the bed. It's just how this thing is supposed to play off is just mind-numbingly stupid. You're trying to, not, be specific and all that, but how this thing is supposed to play off with the intent behind everything that's going on is just moronic on a scale that is just absolutely incomprehensible as to why A, this would work, B, the mechanics of this thing are supposed to go off without a hitch, 3, everybody involved is supposed to play their parts. The whole thing is designed to be played off, everything falls into place and nobody has any contingency plans. And it's just, I read somewhere when I was trying to do research for this, which was probably the stupidest thing I should have done. But yeah, everybody was, pointing out all of these illogical fallacies, and it's like, how is this thing supposed to play off without, the authorities getting involved and, asking 1 or 2 questions that would just basically render the entire thing beyond, rational. And coming from the guys that scripted the Sauce franchise, because this is, Dunstan and Melton, yeah. Coming from guys that, they came from the Saw films, they know what they're doing, and this doesn't feel like they know what they're doing. So it's kind of like, it falls really, really flat on its face, like you're not supposed to think about it. But coming from guys where you're supposed to think about it, you're kind of left without much to say here. So yeah, I won't say it's as bad. I understand where Venom's coming from, because I do recognize and I do see a lot of where he's coming from. But I was with it for about the first 45 minutes, but then after that, it kind of started feeling its length. And then the final twist in the third act is just, it's terrible. So I will say it does have a few positives, but considering where we've come from this year in zombie films with Virus 38, The Sadness, and a couple of VOD films that were unfortunately not covered on Fresh Cuts, but yeah, this is probably the weakest of the bunch, and I've had very, very, very tough time recommending this to anyone other than number padding. Those just looking to fill out the gaps in your list, just looking to get as many films in as you can by saying, well, I watched 150 films. Well, I watched 180 films. So, screw you, my list is better, kind of a situation. If that's your only goal for the year, okay, this is worth a shot. But yeah, everybody else, I don't see much of a reason to delve much further into this one.
Yeah. If Don was into it for 40 minutes, I think I only got a good 20-25.
And that's
I can
see that lasting up until like the crash. I think that's pretty much right where I can see somebody like you checking out.
I think, wait, the initial crash, you mean? The first one? Because that's where I actually started caring about the movie. I mean, like I said, I don't care about any of these characters. They're all, good looking. It's usually good looking white kids, but they actually threw a couple of minorities in here. We got a black guy and an Asian girl. So, I guess they're kind of learning to not just put a bunch of good looking white people in their slashers, but, well, not that this is a slasher, but whatever the fuck you want to call this. I was not on board for as long. Some of the effects, like some of the animal effects, like there's a like a gutted horse in the movie that looked pretty cool and made for a slightly enjoyable scene. But yeah, I just was not on board for very long. Like Don said, once I realized that all these characters are basically just caricatures, just over the top parodies of real humans, I kind of checked out completely.
Yeah,
So,
I don't blame you. Yeah, I see where you're coming from, and yeah, that's understandable. Because I didn't last much longer, so.
All right, Mike, get in here.
All right, so before I get into my thoughts specifically on this movie, I'll just say, as someone who is now into his 40s, I'll spare myself by not saying well into his 40s, but I am in my 40s. I do recognize that there's going to, I am really pushing the edge, probably outside of it now, depending on which.
As the youngest person on this list, I
at.
think I'm the person that's pushing the edge on what the target audience for this kind of a film, because I'm younger than you, and I'm kind of pushing the edge.
Well, no, I wasn't even going to say. I wasn't even talking about this movie specifically. I'm just talking about general pop culture. Like I'm pretty much on the outside looking in now. So I do go into movie, like when I saw the cover art and I kind of looked at the cast, I went into it recognizing like this isn't going to probably be something marketed towards me. However, there's plenty of movies that aren't marketed towards me that I still can have fun with. There's not always overlap with a movie not marketed to me and it's bad. Like it doesn't have to be both, right? But unfortunately, this one kind of is. Now, I actually kind of think maybe saying it's bad is a little harsh. I would say it's mediocre. But, maybe the people watching this that are young and haven't seen a bunch of stuff wouldn't find it that way. But hey, we talk about our feelings on it. So, if I can get my oldest to watch it, maybe she would have a higher opinion on it. But unfortunately, she's not a co-host on the show. So, yeah. So I think my point is like what I'm trying to say is like just because movies aren't marketed to my or our specific demographic doesn't necessarily mean they're going to be bad. Now with this movie, I'm kind of with Dawn because Venom, you mentioned like the second act is the act that you were kind of on board, I guess.
Well, that's where I started to check out. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. See, for me, it was I was kind of fine with the setup. Once we start getting the characters, it's like, okay, yeah, it's going to be these teens probably with superficial teenager problems that are long in my history. I'm going to have to probably sit through some of that. So I was kind of like, okay. And then I actually thought like the bus crash and that kind of the outcome from that was kind of cool. I was pretty on board until I'll try to leave it vague. Our characters end up at a building. That's kind of vague enough to not really spoil anything. Once they kind of get settled in that location, that's to me where the movie just comes to a halt as far as pacing goes. It feels like not much happens until we get to, I guess you would call it the end of the second act or third. I have a hard time even categorizing where one act ends and one begins once we get to that building. But once they start explaining everything that's going on,
so
that's I guess where you can say it picks up again. But
okay, if
I don't know, it ground to me.
Well, I mean, I wouldn't say that this is definitive, but I would say the first act is the bus crash, and then the second act is the backflash to reveal the plan. I think that's kind of like the delineating factors.
Okay,
I might agree with that. Yeah, that's right around the right time.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't say that it's definitive, but I would say the bus crash is the separation between first and second, and then the flashback revelation for what's going on is second into third.
Okay, yeah. So
the second act of this movie is really long. I agree with Don because the bus crash is only at like the 15-minute mark, but the second act is really long in this one.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't say that would be the definitive one, but if I was to do it based on Mike's suggestion, I would probably put those delineating factors in there.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, so yeah, when it kind of goes into some back explanation, I guess you could make the the argument that it picks up a little only because you're okay. I'm getting some kind of information here, but really, it's like okay, now we got what's going on. Let's move again, and it doesn't really move. There's a few good gore gags in this, but otherwise, I just didn't find the characters very interesting. There wasn't really anything that separated this from every other thing. I swear, the more movies this year, I think this year specifically that I see for this demographic, the more I'm like looking back positively on Scream, and I was only lukewarm on Scream to begin with, so I probably just need to rewatch it till I come to my senses on that one too.
No,
sorry, all you Scream fans, but it's like, you know, for all the fault I found in the new Scream, not that I thought it was a bad movie, but just, you know, whether I was being overly critical or not, I look back on it now and I'm like, okay, well, it's still better than most of all these things that I'm watching.
Well, I mean, it's also got a, you know, $50 million budget. I mean, not literally, but I mean, it's a big Hollywood production. So I mean, it is kind of hard to, you know, it's kind of hard to compare Unhuman to Scream. Yes,
yeah,
they're
and
kind
it
of
does have a
the same
foundation to
demographic.
work off of and all that stuff. So
I mean, you've got an established franchise. I mean, they could literally phone it in and make $100 million. So
yeah, and get almost that to even make it in the first place.
yeah, exactly.
So yeah, I mean, I don't know, man. The main character, usually it's someone you can really get behind. I just found it kind of bland. And this one, just I don't know, man.
Plays into her part though, to an extent. When we later on, when we kind of, you know, once the killer gives all the different people a designation, her designation makes sense. Her character plays into that designation. So I think she actually does a great job of being that dull, you know, whitewash character. You know, that's who she's supposed to be. I don't necessarily think it's a bad acting performance. I think that's what the character kind of needed.
Yeah. I liked Peter Giles in this movie. I just wish we got more.
I mean, it was nice to see Drew Scheid in here, you know, from Fear Street and Halloween. I actually do kind of like him. Mm-hmm. And I was on board for his character in this one until we get the reveal, which we'll talk about in the spoiler section.
Yeah, I thought so. Peter Giles, he played Mr. Lorenzo. I guess I don't know if he was their teacher, or just kind of their supervisor for this program or whatever.
Or chaperone or whatever. Yeah.
Chaperone, yeah. So I liked him, and whatever the guy's name was that played the bus driver, I thought was kind of funny. But of course, you know, it's like the adults who are like the best part of this. Not
of course. Kids don't know how to be funny. High school kids think they're funny. They're not. They're funny to each other.
Yeah, exactly. And that could probably just be something where.
I mean, how many teenage stand-up comedians?
Lost in translation thing between like an elder millennial and a Z, I guess. Mm-hmm. Maybe.
Absolutely.
But yeah, overall, like I wouldn't go as far to say it's a bad movie. It's just not for me. And yeah, if you're into what school kids dealing with, I don't even know how much I want to say, but let's just say. Yeah, there's probably an audience out there for this that'll like it a lot more than we did. But
I mean, the biggest positive I can give this movie is that it actually is a very strong statement on bullying. They make a couple of great points about bullying in this movie. It's the points that I've actually thought about for years, but never really had an opportunity to talk to people about. But yeah, that's the one high point of this film, is that if you're someone who's, you know, in a lesser group, if you will, you're not one of the cool kids, I think this movie is probably going to resonate with you, especially if you're someone like Ever, who's basically invisible, you know, who basically, aside from her one friend that she has, she's basically, you know, nothing to everybody else. So, yeah.
Yeah, that's true. And yeah, I mean, again, it's like probably a generational thing, but I agree. I wasn't too enamored with the soundtrack, but that just could be because it's not my personal liking of like that genre of music.
That's what I was saying too. I just don't like that music, so it's probably just me. But even the score stuff, like the stuff that wasn't licensed music, just I don't know. It's not standard Charlie Clouser by any stretch.
Yeah, and it's like I don't know why Scream keeps coming up, but not the new Scream, but even stuff like, you know, Scream 2 and 3 came out in like the height of new metal, and there was like a lot of crappy new metal on those soundtracks,
Sure.
but it still seemed like it kind of fit, like not.
Well, I mean,
it's not music I would sit there and listen to outside of like rolling through the screen credits, but it just kind of felt appropriate for like the movie, where a lot of this music just felt like, oh, let's try to just throw some random stuff. It's just like, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And kind of to speak to your point about target market or target audience, I tend not to buy into that too much, because I'm a believer in the concept of if it's a good movie, it's a good movie, period. Happy Death Day is the example that I always go with. I was supposed to hate that movie. When I saw that trailer, that was back when I was still watching trailers, I wasn't even going to go see it. It looked just dumb as shit. But because we covered it on Just the Movies back then, I went ahead and went to the theater to see it, and I was so pleasantly surprised. I mean, it was so cleverly written, relatable. I just, see, a good movie is a good movie. It doesn't matter who the target audience is. Yes, it might speak more to the target audience, but ultimately a bad movie is a bad movie. And in my opinion, this is a bad movie. There's very little positive that I can say about it other than its subtext. Like I said, I do appreciate the fact that they're, like the killer's motivation in this movie is so much more compelling than the two idiots in the new Scream movie. So, I mean, that's one thing, I guess. That's probably the only thing this movie has over Scream as a franchise, just because they've got the money to pour into that franchise. And this is obviously a micro budget. I mean, obviously, when you see the lack of on-screen kills and gore and everything else, you kind of know they were working on a budget here. So. Mm-hmm. But like I said, the statement that this movie makes is about the highest praise I can give this movie. Otherwise, the rest of it's kind of crap to me.
I agree.
Yeah. All right. Well, anything else anybody wants to point out before we jump into spoilers, which it's going to be a quickie?
Nah, I'm good.
I think I'm good.
All right. So, Unhuman 2022. Our movie opens up with, and by the way, am I the only one who confused the mother and the daughter in that opening scene? Like, I thought Ever was the mom until they started speaking. Like, just when they walked in.
No, because I've seen her before, so I knew who she was.
That makes sense, I guess, because I've always grown up with the understanding that in Asian culture, it's younger girls who have long hair, and then when they reach a certain age or they get married, they tend to cut their hair short. Obviously, this is a new world and rules don't really apply, but yeah, when Ever was just sitting there in the kitchen and her mom walks in, I thought it was her daughter.
I can see that, but I know who the actress is because I've seen her before. So yeah, I didn't have that.
I'm glad I don't know who the actress is, because I don't want this movie to kind of affect my opinion of her. Maybe her next movie will impress me more. Anyway, and how do you pronounce her last name? Brienne Ju?
Ju, yeah.
Ju, okay. Brienne Ju. Spelled Tju. That's why I was confused. All right, folks. So, like I said, our movie opens up with Ever, a young Asian girl sitting in her kitchen. Her mom comes in. Basically, mom is obviously very busy, doesn't seem ultra invested in what Ever is doing. But then right before mom walks out the door, she kind of redeems herself and says, what's wrong? There's obviously something wrong. Talk to me. They have a little heart-to-heart about just, school pressures and everything else. And the scene basically ends with mom telling her, have fun, but make good decisions. And that'll come back to us later. Remember that, make good decisions. And then after that, we're kind of introduced to all the different characters in the movie. Like I said, all high school kids. As Don mentioned earlier, we get the traditional horror hierarchy. You've got your jock, your jock's toady little friend, his cheerleader girlfriend. You've got the fat kid, the out of shape kid that nobody talks to, the outsider. You've got Ever, who's our quiet, cute girl that nobody really pays attention to. Ever's best friend, I forget what her name was, might be Tamra. Basically, kind of a fair weather friend, like is with her when the cool kids aren't paying attention to her. But, which obviously upsets Ever that, she kind of is treated differently when the cool kids are around. But whatever. So, like I said, we're introduced to all of them. We find out that they are going on some kind of field trip. We're introduced to Mr. Lorenzo at this point, played by Peter Giles, who comes off as a really good douchebag. I mean, he plays a great little douche, and treating these kids like shit, and the holier than thou attitude, and I know everything, and he talks about being a doctor, even though once an actual medical emergency comes through, then he's like, well, I'm a doctor of physical education. I'm not a medical doctor, which is just one of the douchiest things somebody with a PhD can ever say, but that's a conversation for another show. So like I said, they take off. They're going on their school trip. They're in one of their yellow buses from the high school. And the bus driver, at least as is perceived by the viewer, the bus driver hits something. The bus driver is having a little bit of an altercation with Mr. Lorenzo, a little kind of shouting match back and forth. Without looking forward, he ends up hitting something that leaves just a giant red blood splot all over the front of the bus, to the point that he has to use, his wipers. And then, of course, we get the incredibly avoidable horror car accident, which let's quiz everyone, folks. If something hits your windshield and it blocks your vision, what the fuck are you gonna do? I'm
press the gas. Press the
gas.
Yeah,
exactly. Right? Press the gas and swing the tire, not the tire, the steering wheel. Steer the car wildly back and forth, left and right. Why the fuck wouldn't you just hit the brake? Just hit the goddamn brake. You're on a road. You're on a concrete road or gravel or whatever. Just hit the goddamn brake. It's such an easily avoidable accident. But again, just one of the thousands of issues I have with this movie. But I had to point that out because that's another horror trope that over the last couple of years has really worn thin on me. The easily avoidable car accident in a horror movie. But I'll leave that alone for now. So our kids have, the bus has an accident. They think they hit somebody and they run off the road. They run into a tree, of course. And then suddenly somebody is outside the bus. Somebody is making noises outside the bus. Now, at this point, the bus is off the side of the road in the tall grass.
I did think the bus crash sequence was pretty good. I did like that scene.
It was filmed well, but the driver is a fucking idiot. Because like I said, something hits your windshield and blocks your vision, you hit the brake. Period. That's it, folks.
Especially it's weird once we learn what we learn later. Like,
exactly. That's what I mean. Yeah, this whole movie, it really drives home Mike's point of this whole plan just being one of the most convoluted, idiotic plans ever. I
thought I brought that up.
Oh, that was you. Okay. Yeah. That no one would ever get away with. The fact that the authorities are never involved in this entire thing, even though literally people are dying, and obviously no one has a cell phone. They make that point right before the bus trip. Mr. Lorenzo collects everyone's cell phones, and we'll get back to the cell phones later. So, like I said, someone outside the bus kind of looks like a metalhead. He's got long hair and a leather jacket with patches on it. So kind of looks like a metalhead. He knocks at the door of the bus. Now, mind you, at this point, it's already very obvious that he's covered in blood, and he's already had a couple of jump scares with some of the kids in the windows. So at this point, we're very aware as the viewer that this is some source of menace here. But of course,
yeah, I thought they were actually going to give us a Jeepers Creepers 2 that we could watch without having to feel guilty about a pedophile being involved.
Yes, thank you. Exactly. Not that I ever feel bad, but that's a story for another show. But yeah, like I said, just Mr. Lorenzo in his infinite wisdom decides to open the bus door and see what this guy wants, or if he's hurt or whatever. And of course, as soon as he opens the door, we see a zombie. We see a traditional, pale-skinned, slightly damaged-looking zombie. He jumps on the bus and instantly takes a bite out of Mr. Lorenzo's face. And what was actually a pretty cool effect, the face peel when he's biting the chunk of his cheek off his face, actually looks pretty cool. So I'll give them their credit when they deserve it. And the zombie, let's just call him the big bad of the movie, basically just starts going through the bus, basically pulling a Texas Chainsaw 2022, where he's just going and just killing people, or at least as far as we know, killing people left and right, slamming them into the hood, into the ceiling of the bus, and then back down onto the ground. At one point there's a girl who's all jacked up, and he pulls her back into the bus, and most people would assume that she's dead. Now, obviously, a few people are able to get out of the bus. Big surprise. It's the characters that we've all been introduced to already. So our little horror hierarchy, they're all still alive. trying to find a way to get out of this situation. That they obviously, at this point, no one has said the word zombie. They just know that there's something going on with this person who's stalking them through the woods. They end up finding an abandoned building out in the middle of the woods, and they basically start to hide out there. Now, at this point in the movie is where we start to have the breakdown that we have in every fucking zombie movie, where the human characters can't get along. In this case, it's even worse because it's high school kids, and you're dealing with like 2 or 3 different cliques, of people in here. You've got the cool kids, you've got the smart kids, or at least one smart kid in Ever, and then you've got the the nerd, the fat outsider, blah 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 blah. Like I said, so they end up, like I said, that whole relationship starts breaking down. People start accusing people of other things, blah blah blah. Our jock, like our main jock douchebag in the film, I forget what his name is. I'm not sure if it's Danny or Chip. Might be Chip. I don't know. Anyway, point is, he is obviously he's the alpha male who thinks he can handle everything and take control of the situation and everything else. But eventually, they do get attacked. A zombie or 2 does end up getting into the building. At this point is where we actually see that there are more than one. It's not just the one big bad that we see. And like I said, once the situation starts breaking down in the hideout where the kids are hanging out, the bus driver ends up getting into the building, and of course he is now a zombie. We see his eyes are all whited out, and they're basically fast zombies in this one. They can run, they can attack, they can, it's very 28 Days Later. But at this point, the bus driver comes in and starts attacking the kids. Well, our main kid, I really wish I knew the names of these fucking idiots. I don't really care. I know Steven is Drew Scheid. He's the weird looking kid from Halloween and Fear Street, the Fear Street movies. But I can't think of what the name, maybe Ryan, I don't know. But anyway, kind of like the kid who seems to have the most on the ball here. And there's probably a reason for that. We'll come back to that point. But basically, he just goes crazy and attacks the bus driver and literally, I'm not kidding, smashes his head in like 20 or 30 times with like a wooden, I don't know if it was a wooden board, like a 2x4, or if it was a pipe or something. But yeah, he basically decimates this guy in what sounds like a great scene, because we hear all the squishing and everything, the bone cracking, but then they don't give us the aftermath. So like I said, folks, micro budget movie here, so don't expect to see a lot of gore. Let's see, where do we go from here? They decide to start coming up with a plan to try to, how can I put it? Almost to cattle the zombies, to herd the zombies into one part of the building. And obviously, that falls apart pretty quickly. We have different arguments between different characters. Ever and Steven get into an argument. Tamara and Danny get in. I mean, it's ridiculous. Everybody's getting into an argument. Everybody is pissed off at each other. And everybody, for some reason, is blaming Ever for this, because earlier in the scene, we see another of the kids, Candace, actually. I do remember her name because they said her name like 18 times in the movie. But yeah, they see Candace, who's still alive. She was the girl who got pulled back into the bus by the big bad. So they see her. She's calling out for help, but our 6 or 7 survivors are hiding in the building. The main douchebag is telling Ever to shut up, because Ever obviously wants to yell out to Candace to say, "Hey, we're over here. Get over here." But as we see outside the window, our big bad is right there. He's literally right there waiting for Candace to show up. And eventually Ever can't take the pressure anymore, and she just starts yelling out the window, Candace, get in here. We're in here." And unfortunately, as soon as Candace hears Ever and starts kind of limping towards the building, in comes our big bad and basically takes her out once again off screen, unfortunately. I mean, that's going to be a theme here, so get used to that. And then, like I said, there's just various set pieces here throughout, with different zombies attacking, different people getting killed, getting bitten. Different kids having arguments with each other, blah, 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 splitting up. Part of the reason I love Ever, I mean, there's something that she does later in the movie that I absolutely love, but the fact that she's very like decisive and still wants to help her friends. Like everybody, all the other kids are terrified. They just want to stay in there and just be quiet, but she's more concerned for a girl who's not even a great friend. Like Candace and Ever aren't set up to be great friends. They're just kind of showing us that Ever actually has some kind of heart and actually cares about her classmates. So and then, like I said, various action set pieces that I'm not going to go over. It's a zombie movie. I'm sure you can figure out the different set pieces that we get. Just remember, think of all of them without any gore. I'm not even sure if this movie is even rated R. It's probably like a PG-13. I don't know. I mean, since it's a TV movie, I don't know that we actually got a rating, but man, ugh.
I think the language would probably bump it up just enough.
Oh,
but
that's true. Was language, yeah.
I wouldn't. I mean, I don't know how that affects a rating anymore, but I mean, I do remember enough to where I think it would probably have gotten the R rating if it was valid.
Yeah, that makes sense. I'll go with that. Oh, wow. I just realized the score for this movie went down overnight. It was a 4.4 yesterday. It's a 4.1 today. And I haven't even added my review yet. Go figure. Anyway, at this point now, I think we can just kind of go over the reveal and what is actually what turns out is happening. And folks, this is why I hate this fucking movie. This is why I hate movies like April Fool's Day, like I'm trying to think of other examples. I can't think of them, but basically where what the characters in the movie think is going on isn't going on, and it's all a big fucking plot. And that's exactly what we get here. We find out that our main protagonist kid, who I'm sorry I forgot his name, but it basically turns out that this whole thing was a plot on his part. He found an old graduate, a guy who graduated from this high school who was like a chemist and drug dealer. And apparently this guy accidentally discovered this drug, this injectable. Basically, it's like a glowing green dye. Basically, and that if you inject it, you basically turn normal humans into zombies temporarily. It doesn't permanently turn them into zombies. So it's basically a hallucinogen type thing. I think in the movie they explain it as they're much more easier to give orders to. They listen to anything that's basically told to them. They don't speak while they're in that state, and they do attack with their mouths a lot. Like there's a lot of biting in this movie, biting on the arms, biting on the face, things like that. So basically they're just convincing people that they're zombies. I don't know. I guess it's a fancy form of bath salts. I don't know. Let's go with that. So basically, yeah, that's our reveal. That this whole thing is
like laundry detergent.
Exactly.
Like the liquid soap done laundry detergent.
Exactly. And they talk about, and then they talk about why. And this is where the bullying comes in. We've seen bullying throughout the movie. Like this same character actually had like a Slurpee thrown at him earlier in the movie just to establish the bully aspect of the whole thing. And as it turns out, Steven, and a couple of the adults, by the way, the bus driver, yes, the bus driver was in on this plot, even though our main kid squished the shit out of his head. So, I mean, good job playing a role. Like that's exactly what you would need to convince your friends that you're on the level, to sit there and literally smash somebody's head open. But as it turns out, they were not a zombie. They were just on this drug, and voluntarily, I might add. Like they actually wanted to go ahead with this plot. So our main big bad is a former graduate who was bullied at school. The guy who the bus driver, once again, was a kid who was bullied at school. And then of course our two main kids, Steven and God damn it, I think Danny. I'm gonna go with Danny. Basically, they all got together and decided to fucking do this whole plot where they were going to get a bunch of volunteers, inject them with this zombie shit, if you will, and just get all the kids, all the kids that they hate into this situation so that they could basically show them, kind of, what it's like to be bullied, what it's like to not feel safe at school. Danny if that is his name, actually has a great little monologue in the movie about bullying and about what it does to you and how, you know, you never get over it. And obviously we see the two adult characters that are a part of this plot too. And it's true. And I can vouch for that, by the way, because I was bullied in school, very much so. Yeah, believe it or not, Mr. Venom was a little meatball in school, and he took a lot of shit for it. I started wearing glasses at 3rd grade. Yeah, what does that tell you? So yeah, I've had my share of bullying, and let me tell you that never goes away. It's not like something I think about every single day. It's not, you know, dictating my life by any stretch. But like now, as an adult, as a full-grown 6'1", 250-pound adult, I don't care how petty it is. If I ever see one of my bullies in the street, I'm beating the fuck out of him. I don't care if he's with his family. I'm beating the living shit out of him. And when he tries to say, "Oh, we're adults now," yeah, fuck you. I don't get that time back. I don't get my confidence. I don't get, you know, all the nights alone, you know, lamenting my life. And, you know, I was never suicidal, thankfully, but yeah. I'm just, the whole point of me bringing this up is that I vouch for the fact of the point that Danny is making, that bullying never goes away. That shit lives with you forever. So, you know what? My petty ass can understand why they went through with this plot. But like I said, it's just so convoluted. The fact that the police are never involved. A fucking school bus full of children gets into an accident. And, you know, like, and it's not like it's so far in the tall grass that the next person to drive by won't see it. They will very obviously see it. So yeah, there is so much that has to go right in this movie that it just, after a while, your head is spinning from all the different hoops that these people had to go through and the different scenarios that had to go perfectly for them to eventually be able to get through this. Unfortunately, the plot is kind of discovered by Ever, because at one point in the film, they incapacitate they incapacitate her, but they don't knock her out completely. Like they do drug her with a little bit of the zombie stuff, but not enough to make her like a marauding zombie, just enough to put her out cold. But she ends up waking up early. She ends up waking up and hearing all their plans. She gets disappointed with Steven because it seems like her and Steven were developing, you know, a relationship of some kind, but now it turns out he's one of the people perpetrating this shit. So basically the end of our film is basically our main antagonist / protagonist, Danny, basically decides to just to inject an overly large dose of this stuff to all these zombies and then just kill them and tell the police, I don't know, they attacked us like drug crazed idiots. So basically he's planning on killing, you know, half his classmates and then, you know, chalking it up to some kind of zombie apocalypse that never actually happened. So yeah, like I said, this plot is so convoluted. And like I said, when I see movies like this, Wolf of Snow Hollow was one recently, where the events in the movie aren't actually what we think they are, and directors think they're so fucking clever that they got one over on their audience, when it's like, no, you didn't get one over on us. We accept the journey that you take us on. As I am the movie viewer, you are the director. You are, you know, the navigator for my next hour and a half. So, you know, don't feel so proud of yourself that you actually got people, because it's a stupid plot point that nobody would ever guess. The point is, I would have guessed this movie was a little bit smarter than just turning this zombie apocalypse into just a plot. From basically two kids, basically two high school kids, came up with this entire thing. This is part of the reason I have a big issue with what's the Christmas movie? God damn it. With the kid trying to kill his baby.
Better Watch Out.
Better Watch Out. Thank you. I fucking hate that movie because you're trying to convince me that a 12-year-old is a fucking maniacal genius. Fuck you. No. I'm not saying that it's an impossibility that it could never happen, but you're telling me that Billy Whitebread from the suburbs is somehow a fucking criminal genius? No, fuck that. I had a real problem with that movie, and that's part of the problem that I have with this movie. Granted, Better Watch Out is head and shoulders better than this movie. But yeah, I mentioned April Fool's Day earlier. Just movies where they try to do that swerve where what we think is happening isn't actually happening. It's incredibly rare that a movie like that resonates with me, where I actually like it. So let me get off my soapbox here and tell you about the ending. So basically, once Ever is aware of the plot, she starts telling all her friends about it. And her friends basically turn on Danny and Steven. What they end up doing, and I skipped the jock's perceived death, which is actually one of my favorite scenes in the movie. The jock, who's a complete asshole douchebag throughout the whole movie, actually has a pretty compelling quote unquote death scene. I have to put that in quotes because he does end up coming back later and he actually gets a hero turn. You know, that's not something we often see. Usually the douchebag dies well before he has the chance to have a hero turn, and he does have one here. So, you know, whatever. I guess I'll give him a little credit for that. Basically, the people that have been injected with the zombie serum are still uncontrollable as far as they can be given orders. But, you know, if you let them loose, they're just going to attack anybody they see. Basically, they end up swapping Steven and the jock douchebag because basically all the zombies are in like a cage, if you will, like a fenced off area inside of this building. And the jock is in there too, but he's not displaying symptoms of the zombie virus. You know, he's still basically normal while all his friends in the cage with him are marauding and trying to attack Steven, who's standing outside of the cage. But like I said, eventually the kids get the upper hand. The good kids get the upper hand on Danny and Steven. They end up pulling the jock out of the cage and then putting Steven into the cage. All we see is Steven get surrounded by the quote-unquote zombies that are in the cage, and that's the last we see of him. So, you know, no glorious Captain Rhodes death here, unfortunately. We got to stick with Day of the Dead for that one. And then you know, all of our adults are basically killed off one by one. At one point, Ever, another reason that I fucking love this girl, does exactly what Danny did earlier in the movie, where she gets the upper hand on one of the zombies and just fucking turns his head into hamburger. Absolutely loved it. I'm only guessing she turned it into hamburger because they don't show us. So there you go. But I still love that. Like she had to have hit him like a good dozen times with that great squish sound effect with every hit. So, and then that's pretty much it. There is a mid-credits scene in this movie. I actually, the mid-credits so bad I forgot what it was.
I didn't even pay attention. As soon as the credits rolled, I turned it off.
Yeah,
because they actually gave us they had the audacity to show us who played who.
Oh right, they did the credits, yeah, like that. Which
instead of just giving us the list, they actually popped up the characters and told us who played who.
Yep.
So yeah, I turned it off at that point.
But yeah, what the hell was Mike? Do you remember what it was?
I just remember it said like 4 to 5 weeks later, and I can't remember what the actual scene was. Oh, I know. I remember now. It's like the cops or FBI or some type of law enforcement meeting with two of the guys and basically saying like, "Hey, we like the results of your freaking experiment or program or so we want to do it again." Kind of like, hey, this is going to be like some type of scared straight program or something.
Basically,
weird thing.
I mean, earlier in the movie, Danny and Steven actually made the reference that it was like scared straight. When Ever was kind of in and out of consciousness and they were talking about the plan, one of them actually does mention specifically that it was like that it was, that it was a scared straight situation, that they didn't necessarily intend to kill anyone. They just wanted to scare the shit out of these people. So yeah, the mid-credit scene is basically they're in jail with their orange jumpsuits on. A woman in a business suit is interviewing them, basically saying, we're real happy with what you guys did. You were able to prove some points, and none of your classmates actually died. And yeah, we'd like to ask you to do it again. So it's like these two idiots who are absolute sociopaths are somehow getting government jobs, which I guess that kind of does make sense in this country.
Seriously?
Good
God, thank God you turned that off.
Oh, yeah, like I even have it in my notes. The mid-credit scene is awful. They are literally trying to make a bad movie worse. And that's exactly what they did. They somehow found a way to make it even worse than it already was. So, yeah, that's Unhuman 2022, folks.
It sounds like they're trying to set up a sequel nobody wants.
Oh God, this movie ain't getting a sequel. Ugh.
Well, no, that's what I'm saying. I think that's what the
No,
thing
you're
was
right.
probably set up. Yeah.
No, you're absolutely right. They're trying to make a franchise here, like Fear Street or something. Because now we're getting a Fear Street series too. So obviously, Fear Street
Yay.
was a success in that kind of teen-oriented horror genre. But as most of you know from us reviewing it, we were positive on all 3 chapters of the Fear Street trilogy. Um, and this movie, which is kind of similar at times, it has elements of Scream, Fear Street. Like I said, I mentioned April Fool's Day. It just it's a pie. Think about if you took a pie and you put in 5 of your favorite ingredients, but they're not pie ingredients. Like you really like hamburger and you really like ice cream, so you threw it in a pie. That would be a fucking terrible pie. That's what this movie is. This movie is a pie of terrible ideas. Oh, I like that. I'm leaving it at that.
A pie chart.
Oh, God.
Yeah, I've got nothing else.
Yeah. Can we go, Mike, please?
I mean,
I want to go home.
I think you pretty much summed it up pretty well. I mean, I don't know.
Again,
it's just a little blandness for me.
Yeah.
Let's just go.
Yeah, again, I'm not trying to say it's the worst movie I've ever seen. It's not even the worst movie I've seen this month, go figure. But it's not anything I can recommend. If you're in the age group of like 12 to 19, this might speak to you, especially if you're a newer horror fan, like Mike mentioned earlier. If you're new to the genre, then, this isn't going to be tropey at all. It's going to be somewhat new and fresh to you. But if you have even 10 years in the horror genre, I say skip this movie. There's not really a whole lot to it. Just go watch Fear Street again.
I gave my thing at the very beginning. Those only looking to boost their numbers as bragging rights should only look into it. So.
Yep. I wish I could take this off my list. Like I never saw it. It's like I never saw it.
Yeah, I've got a few there that I could probably stand to make that claim with.
There you go.
Yeah, let's actually get let's get somewhere else, Mike.
Yeah, please.
Yeah, all right. Well, that is going to do it for our discussion on Unhuman. It will probably be unwatched in the future by us. Just a guess.
Unhuman is unwatchable.
Okay, well, let's find out where else we can be heard. Venom, what you got coming up and what's out now and all that good stuff.
All right. Well, unfortunately, folks, all the shows that I mentioned on the last episode that were to be recorded this past weekend were postponed, mostly because of me. I had a really, really rough weekend. I did some things I shouldn't have done, and it just turned my Saturday and Sunday into kind of a shit show. So unfortunately, both of those got postponed. But hopefully, we'll still get episode 46 of the main show coming up soon in the next week or two. Creature Comforts will be recorded this weekend and will definitely be out later in the week. We're going to be looking at 2010's Monsters, directed by Gareth Edwards, the man who directed the legendary Godzilla movie in 2014. And I forget what our picks are for the main show. Maybe Mike will remember when he goes over it. But that's probably it for me. I'm not even sure. Yeah, I don't have any guest spots currently. And I'm not sure what we're going to talk about next week. So that's it for me.
Okay, let's throw it on over to Don. What do you got out?
Yeah, with the Creature Comforts canceled, the only thing I have is the latest episode of Horror Countdown, where my old buddy Bill Casanelli from the Horror Mafia days, we went over we just picked 10 films we like that no one else does. So always a fun time.
I was gonna say I saw that episode was posted. I just wasn't sure if that was the latest one.
Yeah, well, that always is the latest one. Is the one that I post. So
cool. Yeah, I'm looking forward to that. I haven't heard Bill Casanelli on a show in a long time.
Yeah, we ended up it took a while to get that one in, but yeah, it was a lot of fun. So I always enjoy going over those. So I mean, it was one of those I could have just picked 10 at random and then call that my top 10, just because there's always so many. But
yeah, true. Okay, is that it for you?
Oh yeah. One last thing. I do have a guest spot coming up that I am going to record. It's going to be a fun little cross promotion kind of a thing where I'm going on their show and they're coming on mine. I don't have everything worked out yet, but hopefully this will be something we can work out. It is a show that I've been promoting on myself, so I don't know if everybody's familiar with, but it's called Frighternity. Instead of a university, they put fright instead of uni, so it's Frighternity instead of university. But I've been promoting them for a while, and we got together. We have everything laid out, but we don't have what we're actually going when we're going to record everything. So it's not out yet, but hopefully that'll probably be available sometime in July. So
Sweet. Sounds awesome. All right. Well, as far as I go, yeah, I've been keeping my schedule pretty clear. Like Venom said, the main show did get pushed back, so that was something I had on my schedule, but we'll probably look to get it rescheduled ASAP. It's funny because this is one it's like actual news items like popped up during this past week, so I'm like, oh, I actually have a list of stuff to talk about, but hey, I'll just add to it if I need to.
There you go.
Other than that, yeah, no, I'm more listening to stuff than recording stuff these days when I go on my walks. But yeah, that's it for me. Venom, are we back to the theaters? I can't remember if it's this coming week or because there's still something in June releasing, right?
Oh, the Black Phone at the end of the month.
Phone, that's
yeah, Black. That's the last week of the month. I think that is either the last week of June or the 1st of July, depending on when it comes out.
Yeah, it's June 24th. It's the end of the month.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Sweet. As far as this week, honestly, I am not sure. I don't think there's anything at theaters. I'm actually looking at my AMC listing as we speak. And no,
I know. Did you end up seeing Watch during the theater?
No. Since we didn't do it, I didn't bother going out.
Okay.
Because I was gonna, but
go ahead. I don't know why the screenings here worked kind of weird. Like it opened, and I was planning to try to go see it, and then everything stopped on a Thursday. I guess because there were so few screenings that they pushed it out to make room for everything new that was opening on that Friday. But when I was looking for show times, I also read that they were gonna throw it to VOD in a week or two, so we could still maybe end up doing it if there's nothing, whatever week it comes out. If we need something, I mean, by then there should be plenty of new stuff anyway. But it's okay. It'll always be an option.
I've got something opening up out here in LA. I'm not sure if you guys are getting it, but it is playing at AMC theaters out here. It's this is weird. It's called The Witch Part 2. But it is an Asian film.
Yeah, that's the sequel to the one that came out, I think, in 2018 or 19.
Yeah, and I actually like the subtitle of this one. It's The Witch Part 2, The Other One. Almost like telling you, no, Robert Eggers has not done a sequel to The Witch. This is something different. But that opens in theaters out here this week.
I don't really know if that one would really count because if it's the sequel to the one I'm thinking of, it's actually an action movie, not a horror film.
Oh, really? Oh, that's it says horror action on AMC, but AMC is the be all end all.
I know, but I'm saying is that if it's the one I'm thinking of, it's a South Korean film. It's an action movie. It's kind of like a superhero kind of a thing. They kind of treat it more of like a Brightburn kind of a sense. If it's the one I'm thinking of, it kind of plays more kind of like Brightburn than anything.
Yeah, because the first one was actually called The Witch Part 1.
Yeah, I think that's the one.
Yeah, a high school student with amnesia tries to uncover what has happened to her. That sounds right. Oh wow, it's a 7.5 on IMDb.
Yeah, it's really good. If it's the one like I said, I think it's the one I've seen.
Shit.
So
yeah,
I'll
try to watch it before this.
Yeah, it's really good, but I don't know if it would really count as a genre film though. It's worth a watch, but yeah, it's kind of borderline, and this is a sequel to it. And I think it picks up the events right after.
I'll look for it later. Even if it's just Korean action, I'm interested. So I'll
Yeah,
check it out.
they do that really good. I like those as well.
Yeah, exactly. All right.
All right. Well, with that said, yeah, we'll get something picked for
We'll figure
the
it
next episode, and we'll be back next Monday, most likely, with another episode of Fresh Cuts. So until then, thank you everybody for listening. We will catch you next time. Let's say bye to listeners.
Bye,
Later.
listeners, and please remember to use your brains.
Later.
Peace.